The outcome-based pricing is a version that moves our revenue to be almost completely aligned with the value we actually deliver. Fin sees a conversation, it resolves it, we're paid. If it doesn't, we're not. That alignment, that sort of vendor incentives that aligned up with customer outcomes is the most customer-centric pricing model that one can build. And honestly, it's where the market is going, whether we let it or not. So I think the board conversation would probably be like, are you the ones willing to lead this change?
Hi everybody, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining the Boardroom Club to another episode featuring none other than Archana Agrawal, president of Intercom, a company that redefining how businesses communicate with customers, taking their customer support to the next level. So Archana, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Yossi. It's good to be on the show.
The pleasure is ours. So Archana, I want to cut to the chase and start with the most interesting question out there. So you've spoken about the need to break the old operating model to become an AI native, right? And Intercom has done quite a show there and essentially moved from predictable seat pricing to sort of like an outcome-based pricing. If you can share with us a little bit about this model and how did you communicate it with the board?
As we introduced Fin, our AI agent, Fin is offered at an outcome-based pricing. Very simple. We charge 99 cents per outcome. The outcome-based pricing is a version that moves our revenue to be almost completely aligned with the value we actually deliver. So it's almost a more defensible business model in that case, right? And Fin sees a conversation, it resolves it, we're paid. If it doesn't, we're not. That alignment, that sort of vendor incentives that aligned up with customer outcomes is the most customer-centric pricing model that one can build. And honestly, it's where the market is going, whether we let it or not. So I think the board conversation would probably be like, are you the ones willing to lead this change, which is almost obvious in the world of AI agents. Now, we went from a place where we were selling seats in a world that was actually truly expecting resolutions. Buyers want automation. They don't want a feature set, They want measurable outcomes. They don't want just activity dashboards to monitor. And so that was the internal alignment of let's not be disrupted by this model. Let's actually align ourselves completely with the value we delivered. For the first time, we had the kind of tooling and the product to be able to do that. I probably also I think it's worth mentioning that outcome-based pricing is new. For us, it was. But also
You for everyone.
Yes, but for everybody and for the customers. Like, the buyers didn't usually measure their business in outcomes. They measured it in conversations and how many agents they had and things like that. And so Intercom put a lot of effort into building the instrumentation that made it all real for them, the real-time dashboards, predictable billing, annual buckets so that seasonality wasn't a consideration that would hurt them, no penalties for overages. So there's a lot that went behind. It's easy to say, 99 cents per resolution and outcome-based pricing. But in order to give buyers the transparency, the predictability, and even how to learn how to grow with that model, there was a lot of instrumentation built behind it to make it all work. I'd say transparency is sort of the prerequisite to trust, and trust is the prerequisite to the whole model working.
Absolutely. And just a quick follow-up. How long was this transition from the predictable seat to outcome-based? Was it a 1-year period or was it just like a couple of months? How long did it actually take you?
When Fin launched, it launched out of the gate with outcome-based pricing. Of course, modifying the internal systems, our own go-to-market motion, our ability to help customers understand it, the ROI calculators that would help people assess how much they wanted, how many outcomes they wanted to buy. That was a matter of a few months of getting it all tuned, but it launched out of the gate with outcome-based pricing.
It's very interesting indeed, because besides the outcome-based pricing, you also have this performance guarantee and $1 million of performance guarantee, which is incredible, essentially for all the audience. So if Fin misses 65% of the resolution mark, you need to give the performance guarantee, right? But was it sort of like a sales accelerator or retention mode? How do you actually see it?
There are actually two guarantees that we offer. One is a 90-day satisfaction guarantee. So if you're not satisfied in your first 90 days, you get your money back up to $1 million, no questions asked. And then there's the Fin $1 million guarantee. So if you don't achieve a 65% resolution rate, Fin pays you $1 million. And this is restricted to high volume customers and I talk about, like you said, hey, is it an accelerant or sort of a moat? I'd say both in different ways and in different horizons. So in a deal room, the guarantee obviously compresses the buying cycle. If a CFO has a risk question like, what if this doesn't work? Well, there's a built-in answer. That's the accelerator behavior, which is you get to check whether you are satisfied, whether it works for your business model, whether you're able to customize and tune it and get what you wanted, get what we promised. And that is sort of one part of the guarantee. I'd say the retention mode is more interesting in that to credibly offer the guarantee, the entire system that's being built behind it is one where we have the conviction in our resolution, where we have the conviction in our customer success motion and the tooling we provided. People don't leave or churn from products that are getting measurably better. That doesn't happen. And so I'd say it's actually the system that is the moat and the retention that we have that allows us to eventually, obviously, offer this guarantee.
I guess it did change some of the customer success motion or even the selling motion, the incentive that you need to give all your salesperson in the company. Can you elaborate a little bit about this transition of the customer success and the salespeople within this new sales method?
Yeah. And so all of our customer facing teams, whether it's sales and account management and customer success, they're all incentivized by resolutions and outcomes, which is what the customer is paying for. And so it is in everyone's best interest to actually help tune, model, configure the systems for the customers so as to keep increasing the resolutions. So you actually have active partners that are working with you throughout your journey with Intercom, right from the get-go. In order to sell you something that's based on outcomes, I need to understand how many outcomes you're going to have, understand your business. I need to understand your business needs. And that is quite a transformation in sort of the sales play itself and how we work with our customers. I'm no longer asking you, hey, how many people on your team? So how many seats do you need? That's not the discussion. The discussion is, what are the kinds of problems you're trying to solve? How can we solve it in what time frame? And that's a discussion around outcomes. And so it's very consultative throughout the process. And once you've decided you're going to use Fin and you're going to use it on your conversations, you have someone like a success person, or we even have a lot of content and education. If you go on fin.ai today, you'll find the blueprint that actually tells you how you can achieve the maximum amount of success in configuring your system and the way you work in order to deliver the outcomes. And so that's an entire modification of everything ranging from incentive programs to how goals are set within the company to what we celebrate internally. And it changes the culture of the company to be excited about adding things that allow, like pay-go, let the customer use it as much as they want to and let them just pay for what they use, which was not necessarily a concept we celebrated earlier, and now we do. So that's just a big change. It's more than just delivering the product. I tell my teams now, go to market is the product because you're helping in driving those outcomes as well alongside with the customers.
I guess the best salespeople from all the speakers that we've spoken with are the ones that ask the best questions. So it makes sense. And okay, now more than ever, brand matters, right? We transition from system of record to system of context. But as LLM become the primary interface with the end user or with your customers, I wanted to ask, what does brand marketing actually mean today in terms of like the brand ambassador? Is it more the AI or maybe the support representative still matters or not necessarily?
It all does. So I'll start with how, because brand has to shift from just sort of broadcasting your brand promise to actually engineering what you promise in every experience, right? When AI allows you to be consistent, it allows you to be consistent in your expression of your brand, and therefore brand almost becomes a product feature and not just a marketing artifact. Even when you use Fin, for example, tone, accuracy, persona, how you recover from an engagement with the user, how do you escalate. All of this is configurable. All of it is observable. All of it is tunable. And so you're already at this place where your agents can be fully customized to represent your brand. You set their identity, you set the tone of voice, you use the guidance to give them the support policies you care about, the communication style. And when you manage multiple brands, you can do it differently across all brands. And so I think it makes it so powerful. It is a reputation when you're trying to build your brand of, obviously you're building a reputation over time by offering something that's distinct, by shaping how customers think, feel, act towards your company, right? That reputation compounds through consistency. If you can then do that consistently across every touch point and remove the variance, add the empathy that your brand wants to bring or the care that your brand wants to bring to the expertise and the context that AI can provide in the moment. And when you meld those two things, it becomes a sharper and more consistent expression of your brand. That wasn't possible before at that scale, right? I still think humans always play an important part. You have to live that part. You have to live that part in your customer interactions. You have to live that part, as I said, in what you celebrate internally in the company. You have to live that part in moving as fast as your customers are moving. So it is an entire system, but I do think AI helps us with the customer experience portion of it.
100%. It's actually a great segue for my next question, because I wanted to ask you if you think that the future might hold us sort of like a dystopian future where we will manage only agents rather than humans. If it's still the case in Intercom, or we have still way to go. But
Well, we believe humans will be needed for a very, very, very long time. And it isn't just sort of a lean layer of humans that are managing, like, I don't know, hundreds and thousands of specialized agents. I actually think it's all about powerful agents. In fact, you don't need hundreds and thousands of them. You really need powerful agents, and humans become the way in which you engage and train and test and deploy and manage those agents. So I almost think it elevates the human job to do something that's much more difficult. And an IC was a doer of things, an individual contributor was a doer of things. But today, that IC is managing a team of AI agents, is how you think about it, or a very powerful AI agent across multiple touch points. That's a lot of responsibility. That's a lot of upskilling. That's a lot of change in the kind of profiles you hire. So I do think it changes the way organizations are built and are grown, but it's still very much a human business where you have humans working with these agents over time.
so go human in the loop. We are in for the humans. No Skynet yet, but and okay. So we talk a lot about AI, and I was wondering, do you think that now we enter in sort of like a zero trust enterprise era where the distinction between product sales and support disappear to one orchestrator that's doing the whole thing, or we are not there yet?
We're moving there. So I'll tell you, my prior experience was at Atlassian, for example. And even there at Atlassian, when we led a very product-led motion, we used to say, we're built for the Fortune 500,000, not just the Fortune 500. That's because we wanted to say that we allow for that scale, and self-serve was a discipline. It's a discipline in the way you think about it. Like, do not insert a human in the process when you can have technology play that role. And I think what's happening right now with agentic AI, in the same way it sort of applies to me around whether it's the sales motion or the success motion or the support motion. Yes, they're all converging, but you should make them converge in a way the customer is not actually labeling it as sales or labeling it as support. The boundaries were always artificial. It was us human organizations that created that boundary. But you can imagine this. It's a future that I think of, for example, if you imagine dozens of agents, right? Imagine a sales agent, a support agent, an onboarding agent, a cancel prevention agent. Imagine all of these things. If they're all acting independently and they're passing context poorly to each other, that's horrific. That's like, orchestration, messy, chaos. It's a bad customer experience, bad handoffs. Like every time you interacted with the brand, you'd wonder if the brand had amnesia of some sort because they'd ask you the same question over and over again if they did transfer. Now, the right shape of this is like a single agent doing multiple jobs, shared context, being able to have shared memory, shared actions, shared integrations. Now that's super powerful. And that to me is sort of the way when you talk about are these distinctions changing? Yes, to the extent we can use technology to make a better experience, why wouldn't we? We would definitely want to make that much more seamless.
And now I guess you also just raised $250 million in debt. And the one thing that's interesting about it that you actually mentioned as part of the funding raise, that you're gonna doubling down and employ even more people down the line. So if you can tell us maybe what are some of your product roadmap or some of your future plans as part of Intercom, if you can share some of it. So
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, we're growing in and investing in many, many more categories, which causes obviously all that growth. So, investments in engineering, product, AI research, and of course, all the go to market functions. And I'd almost think about this as rebalancing, if you will, in some ways, the kind of functions that need more investment and the kind of functions that have a different role to play, and therefore they don't need those many number of people growing, but I would say the role that they play is still extremely important. Support might be one of them in that context. And Fin is becoming so powerful when I think about 3 years ago, just something that's launched in market to the kind of actions that it takes today on behalf of support teams, the kind of scale it can have, running millions of resolutions in a week, right? That kind of scale that you work with. And last month, we announced our sales agent, where Finn is actually doing the role for sales. Yesterday, we announced our e-commerce agent, where Finn is actually helping suggest right products in an e-commerce setting. We will soon announce our success agent. And so Finn is taking on these many, many different roles that explains sort of the investment and both in terms of AI, R&D, and go-to-market to be able to support across this breadth of roles that Finn is going to be able to manage.
that's interesting because you doubling down on Fin as an agent. So we see a lot of other companies that sort of like doing multiple specialized agent, while you from Fin sort of like a branches of a tree. You're going to support, you're going to sell. So why did you decide to go into this path?
Yeah, I think it's to the same extent, like I mentioned before. It is usually when a company is employing agents, it's this one company, it's this one brand, it's this one set of ethos. It has a set of policies, it has a goal it's trying to achieve in the world. Now, imagine if to do that at every customer touch point, you needed to train 6 different agents on the same brand, on the same policies, on the fragmentation that it causes in that journey. When somebody comes in with a service question and you answer that question, but you understand that they're actually looking to buy another product, if you just handed them over to somebody else that had to start all over again and ask them all the questions, like that is a messy, messy, messy place to be. And so we do believe that now, it wasn't possible before, but now we have the technology to be able to really craft perfect experiences. So imagine 24/7 in any language, on anytime, being able to get in touch with a company and being able to engage them to get to your next step with that brand. That is what is possible today. And that's the architecture that we're investing in. So think about it, as I said, shared context, shared memory, shared actions across all of these agents, shared integrations. That is what you invest in when you invest in an AI agent. And then you invest in it once. You don't have to invest in it 20 times or then build a whole orchestration system around it.
It's all about the context of the AI. That's something that many of our past speakers says, because AI without information that can connect the dots, it's nothing, right? And one of your latest major launches was monitor and customers scoreboards, effectively automating QA for both AI and human agents. But how does this reshape the human in the loop that we've already spoken about? And are humans moving from doing support work to sort of like auditing the agents? Or
I think the way I would actually describe it today, humans are moving from doing support to designing the systems that audit AI, not even just auditing AI themselves. So when you think about monitors, they define what conversations should get reviewed. So if there, let's say there's some sensitive conversations that you have with your customers, they could be prone to maybe customer dissatisfaction or whatever else. Okay, those are the ones you want to monitor. Set up the monitors. What do you want to monitor them for? Are you monitoring them for tone or accuracy, or what is it? Custom that. What is your scorecard? Figure that out. Figure what gets auto-passed and what must be reviewed by a human. Now, designing that system of rules of sort of how you want to monitor and how you want to audit your AI, that's being done by the human. So it's not even like auditing every single AI answer. The AI that you buy, it needs to show you that you can trust it. That amount of transparency needs to be there. It can't be a black box. You need to be able to analyze what it is delivering for you. And that is where the humans then put in their judgment in terms of both improving the system and or deciding how they want to change their policies or the way they want to work with their customers.
I do have actually a follow-up question about what you just mentioned. How you ship the products, because if the customer doesn't get it at the end of the day, it's a bad day, right? What changes inside Intercom that help the product teams to move so quickly and launch AI features, let's say even faster than some of the LLM deals in the market?
Maybe I'll say three things changed. One is, we picked a lane. We were doing too many things at some point in time. And then we're like, all right, we're going to do service, and cleared the lane to become the best. Fitfin was the best customer service AI agent. So that cleared sort of any strategic noise. We had a path. We were running down that path, perhaps. And then second, we changed the culture explicitly, right? The values, the need for speed and innovation within the company. And we all adopted AI tooling as well. So recently, you've probably seen a lot more in the news around a lot of our R&D organization has 2x productivity in 9 months. And that's like a big deal to turn around and say, this is a 500-person team and everyone's going to actually make this the part of the way they work in order to not only talk about velocity and increase productivity, but also do it at a much higher quality and fix a lot more of the backlog of bugs and actually really deliver very, very high quality software. So that was the second thing, which was just the ethos and the way we're working. And then third, we rebuilt the operating cadence. It's no longer, we don't think about why don't we get together for the next year's annual planning cycle and plan the annual. That doesn't happen. There's no annual roadmap being planned in advance. We know which direction we'd like to take, but we actually, it's not a factory that's kind of taking out all of these features so quickly. It's more like a lab that's working, a living, breathing lab around taking customer feedback, improving products, taking market signals. AI is changing itself very fast. The capabilities are changing very fast and being able to move fast with that. So I'd say all of these, making AI fluency part of our performance itself and ensuring like our designers ship code, engineers are able to move much faster. Go-to-market folks, our marketers are so much more fluent in the use of AI. And so it was a cultural change alongside with tooling change.
Make a lot of sense, and it's all about moving fast, as you mentioned in the AI, or you just like be gone by tomorrow, right? And something interesting about the AI space in general, that a lot of companies using multiple foundational models, right? But if you need to touch a little bit specifically about Intercom, where do you think your competitive mode coming from more? Like, is it the data, the workflow, or maybe even the distribution or the customer's retention?
As you probably indicated in your question, where does it come from more? Because it's changing over time. So last year, if you asked me this question, I would have said, we have a self-serve business and we have an enterprise business and we're authorities in customer service. And that's a big part. We have industry defining resolution rates, and that's where our moat is. But in March, we shipped Fin Apex, our own custom trained models, post-trained on billions of sort of human and agent agent customer service interactions, and it beats all of the LLMs on the metrics that customer service specifically actually cares about. And the strategic point there is you actually build a system, that moat that comes there, being able to use models that are fine-tuned for your custom purpose there. You build the system of AI and experimentation when you have thousands of customers, so that when you launch new features, you know that it's raising the boats for all the customers at the same time. And that flywheel that you can then have with your own AI models, with an experimentation system, with the ability to move fast that we just spoke about, when you superimpose all of these things, it's not really about having one silver bullet that actually sustains. It is being able to build on each one of these with many, many different levers in order to be able to do something like give the money back guarantee, right? That comes with the conviction of the systems that you've built and the moat around it. But I'll also go back to one of the first things I said, which is our dual motion. You have a lot of businesses that are enterprise businesses in the AI space. They service enterprise and large customers. In the developer space, you also have a lot of self-serve AI offered in the products. Intercom goes across being able to do both motions. You come in, you can try Fin today. You could do it right now if you wanted to on our site, and you could set it up with complete ease, as well as the largest of companies that use Fin can do so with a lot of customization and deep work with our teams, and being able to have that entire spectrum with a self-manageable product is one of our biggest, I think, competitive advantages.
Okay, so we see that Fin is very successful, right? The resolution rate is very high, but if you need to choose one thing about maybe customer use case that surprised you the most, what would it be?
I don't know if I want to point out a use case. One of the things that has been surprising, obviously, is the speed at which this has all evolved, right? The capabilities at which this has all evolved. So that's one thing. The second has been, honestly, the enablement. Like, if you think about any business, it was so hard for a small business to really think about 24/7 multilingual support. Like, that was just not even achievable at some point in time. And now it's easily achievable by everybody. I mean, that's almost like become our brand philosophy, right? Because now perfect experiences are possible. And to me, that has been not just like an individual use case. It's very interesting to see how, you can now call up and ask for a refund on something or change your shipping address. That's pretty cool to have an AI agent be able to do that. You can troubleshoot why your headphones are not working very well while you're on a call or in a chat, or you can write in. All of those are very, very cool. But to me, what's been the most inspiring actually is seeing how it has just changed the shape of what people can imagine offering now, which was never possible before.
You mentioned the number of languages, and it's astonishing because just to give a different context for every customer in different geographies, rather than the same kind of answer, a generic answer, but just in a different language. So it's definitely a total different game altogether. And okay, Archana, so I want to move on now to the last part of the interview, the rapid fire questions. It's the fun questions though. So the first one, if you need to give advice for builders or for operators, founders in today AI world that navigate in this ever-changing space, what advice would it be?
Probably focus in that regard. I think that's, at least looking back even at how Owen changed Intercom coming back, taking a risk or taking a bet and going all in on it, and doing it with conviction, giving it the oxygen to truly have a great chance versus hedging, and then doubling down, not like taking your wins early and walking away, but right, doubling down. I really think that is what the market today needs to make transformative changes. They're not easy to make, but they take that amount of conviction and they take that amount of effort to make it come to fruition. So I think that's one. And then the second, which I think is easy to fall into that trap, is don't think about AI as a feature. A feature gets shipped, that's fine, but it's an operating model. It has to rewire the way people work. You have to think about how your product is changing what humans do every day. How is your go to market changing? How is your sales incentive changing? How is your pricing changing? How are the skills you need in your org changing? Like, it is an operating model. So it's not about just building a feature and saying, okay, it's available, and now people will come and sort of like take advantage of it. You have to put the effort to make the operating model work for that.
So it's all about effort and conviction. And okay, so actually Intercom is an interesting company because you were founded before the AI. Now you're sort of like an AI native company. But what does it mean to be an AI native company? Is it just like to add many AI agents or to do the full transformation or?
I'll lean a little on the last answer. Don't work on AI. Think about an operating model. That's an important one. And I think the investment Intercom made in that was early enough to be able to reap these benefits. The second is you build it like a lab. You don't have the playbook. You do not have the recipe. You don't know, oh, on June 14th, I can launch this feature because by then it will be working perfectly. It's not as deterministic as that. Cycles are not that predictable. That's why I said we don't go out with 1 year roadmaps, but you have a defined deliverable and a direction and a ship time frame. And you start with the capabilities and keep improving over them. And so I almost think about operating your company like a lab and not like a factory, right? And then I think it's part of this, which is compound your wins. Don't take them off the table. As I said, it's even if it's a contrarian bet, you make the next bigger bet because it does require that amount of conviction. And I think those are patterns you'll see in all AI native companies today.
And mentorship. If you need to choose one mentor, one maybe mentor's advice that gave you in the past, what would it be? Or
Yeah,
who would it
so
be?
who would it be? So I've been very fortunate. When people ask me to ever like think about careers, I would say I've just been very fortunate to work with extremely wonderful people and leaders who've invested in me. One of the ones that comes to the forefront would be at least a career defining phase of my time, which was working at Atlassian under the president Jay Simons. And when I think about what about his leadership inspired me or the way I try to lead, it is really getting into the trenches with your team, problem solving, being part of giving direction, clarity, all of those things that become so critical today. And if I have some of those sort of skills or intuition, it comes definitely from learning from the best.
Okay, so we talk about mentorship, but if you need to grab a coffee with anyone, it could be alive, could be a historical famous figure, who would it be?
Oh, for that, if I had to grab coffee, I would grab coffee with, it would be with Indra Nooyi. And she was CEO of PepsiCo and just a transformative leader and someone who stood there and really helped transform the company, even in the direction of sustainable and healthy foods. But being able to do it at the time she did, and when I still hear a lot of her snippets and sort of integrating her life the way she did while she ran such a big transformation, I think I would not only take a coffee, but a whole meal and more just to learn more from her.
Absolutely. I can tell you that actually when I applied to my MBA, I went to Yale School of Management to one of those sessions and she was there. I think she's even a alum of Yale, if I'm not mistaken. So it was very intriguing and interesting to learn from her experience. So I can understand your answer. And okay, if you need to choose an alternate career in an alternate universe, nothing to do with tech, AI, or, being an operator in Silicon Valley, what would it be? An astronaut or like, feel free to.
It funnily wouldn't be that high tech. As from being a child, I've always learned sketching and I loved sketching. And I feel I would have chosen a direction somewhere in art. Now, technology makes that much easier and it makes it so much easier to bring your imagination to life. But it would have been something perhaps quite different from where my engineering roots took me.
That's interesting. We just hosted the CPO event and he said the same thing. He's going to be like writing some comics book. So it's interesting. And okay, our favorite question of them all. What is your favorite movie of all time?
Oh my goodness, that's a hard one. Can I bail on the movie, but I'll tell you what I've really enjoyed watching is a serial called Ozark, and it's funny, a little bit funny about why it is, but it's a very very stressful serial. And sometimes when you go through a hard work day, you think, oh goodness, even my hardest work day would be a simple, very simple day on the Lake of Ozarks just because of the way it had been. And so, in a very funny way, it helps you get reorient your stress and decompress from it by knowing that things are actually very manageable, at least in my life and in my workspace, which feels remarkably good.
I heard about this series on Netflix, right? And I see it on my screen, or sort of like your bucket list that you have to watch. But I still say, okay, next week or like next month, before
Yes,
you can
it's
really
hard
like
to get the time to watch it, that's for sure.
yeah, before you get attached to the series for real. So, China, thank you so much for joining us. It's really been a joy, and we learned so much. So, thank you so much for joining us. And for everybody else in the audience, so stay tuned. We have other interesting episodes. As we mentioned, the CPO Venta, president of Cisco. So it's going to be interesting. Stay tuned.